Well, it is day 3 at the Republican National Convention, day 2 of actual convention activities and speeches. And to say things haven't exactly gone according to plan would be an understatement. Hurricane Isaac, of course, the main distraction from the RNC, being the top story in the news cycles. But yesterday brought us chaos and protests on the floor of the convention, not by unruly protesters, but by the delegates themselves. Mitt Romney is now the official Republican nominee for president, but yesterday's boos, both from Ron Paul supporters and from those opposing new rules put in place by the Republican National Committee, illustrate that full support behind their candidate is not easy to come by. RT White House correspondent Christine Frizzell joins us from Tampa for more. Hi, Christine.
Hey there, Liz, and that's a truth that's been known by the RNC for quite a while now, but I don't think they really expected what happened yesterday, just about this time on the floor here behind me. I don't think they expected it to happen to the extent that it did. We're talking about angry delegates from Iowa, from Nevada, from Maine, and the loudest of them being from Texas. Many of them in support of Ron Paul, many of them really in opposition to these new rules that were adopted by the Republican National Committee. People say this is going to set a dangerous precedent for politics in the future. But Liz, as we know, politics is not just about big red, white, and blue parties and convention. It's also about actual policies that affect actual people. So we traveled just a few blocks outside of the convention and found some people who are protesting what they see is a dangerous future, and they're trying to put a stop to it.
I organize other 11-month-olds.
Tara Colon says she's sick of hearing that anyone who wants to can pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
I work 6 days a week and only get paid $3.50 an hour because I'm a waitress. And because of that, I've been in and out of homelessness. Homeless people, poor people, we're not lazy.
The mother of 5, including 11-month-old Anthony, is part of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, hoping to shine a light on issues faced by those living in poverty as the Republican National Convention takes place a few blocks away from the area they're calling Romneyville, a reference to the Depression-era Hoovervilles.
Our government is passing policies that are killing poor people, policies that are allowing children in this country to be malnutritioned, allowing policies that allow elderly and disabled and children to freeze to death in the winter time.
But on these hot summer days, those staying here say the amount of power concentrated in their city right now is far removed from a life they have ever known.
Well, it's a really sad and disturbing contrast. We have 1% of the population controlling more than 40% of the wealth.
I can't find work. I've been looking forever.
There are nearly 200 people staying here. Some of them have been here since May. Others are here just for the week of the convention. Now, their messages are very similar to what we've heard from the Occupy movement, but they're more narrowly focused on the high foreclosure rate and the problem of homelessness in America.
We have a convention here that talks about family values, but they have no sense that keeping a family in a home, keeping children fed is a much more important family value than whether they're gay or straight.
A few of these Romneyville residents will leave at the end of the week and head to Charlotte, where Obamaville is already being set up. For now, in this pocket of the city, most here say their protest is also their reality. In Tampa, Florida, Christine Frizzell, RT. We thought this was an important issue to focus on as well because, you know, if you've been watching so much of the cable networks, the focus is on topics like abortion, topics like, you know, the future of welfare. But this is a real problem in this country, what's been happening with foreclosures. And being in Florida, that is extremely prominent here. The foreclosure rate here, I think the second highest in the country, only after California. So we thought this was an important issue to talk about with these people who clearly are against not just Mitt Romney, but against the political system as a whole.
So we have these people, they're trying to get their voices heard in any way they can over at Occupy Tampa and Romneyville. How do they plan to get their voices heard as this convention sees its final days?
Well, Well, it's really difficult, Liz, because we don't see one unified major protest against Mitt Romney or against the RNC. What we see are various protests taking place outside of the convention center. The other night there was a march of people against the new voter ID laws. As you know, Liz, Florida is a state with quite a few elderly people, and many of them have never needed to use a driver's license or an identification card to vote, and that's going to change this year, and it's happening in states across the country. So that was one of the protests that we saw happen. Excuse the music here. They've been doing rehearsals all day. But so far, Liz, I mean, I think it's just a matter of continuing to stand on the corner and yell their messages and really trying to get those who are here in town for the convention to listen.
Okay, so it's clear that from your report there that there aren't huge Romney fans outside of the convention, but what about the people inside?
Well, that's been really interesting, and of course we focused on it a little bit yesterday with those Ron Paul delegates. But, you know, there's a whole bunch of people who are, you know, longtime Republicans, and they're not quite as excited as I think that they wanted to be, or as the party wanted them to be, about Mitt Romney himself. It was really interesting, Liz. I was walking around quite a bit yesterday, and there was a candidate here who was being followed around. Everyone wanted to get his autograph, get their picture taken with them. I'll give you a hint who it was. 999. I'm talking, of course, about Herman Cain, who had a little rise in prominence during the campaign early on. So people are here to support Mitt Romney, to back Mitt Romney, but really, you know, they're still sort of working on being 100% sold.
We have an interesting chart here that I want to bring attention to, Christine, if we could bring that up. The title is Anyone But Romney, and you could see the various candidates, the Republican presidential candidates, and we have Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry, Herman Cain, Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum. Each of them has enjoyed their time in the limelight. And you see Mitt Romney has kind of had this consistent following, but not that kind of surge that we've seen for the others. The other candidate that also has had a consistent following is, of course, Ron Paul. Christine, can you describe, and of course they are the ones with the loudest presence over there now, can you describe the difference in the supporters over there in Tampa, those that support Romney and those that support Ron Paul?
Well, it's such an interesting chart, Liz, and with any political contest, it's almost one of those situations that if you combine all the best qualities with each of those candidates, you'd have your perfect candidate. People, you know, loved how Rick Perry shot straight and talked to people like, you know, they were his neighbors. They loved Michelle Bachmann and some of her conservative arguments and some of Rick Santorum's conservative arguments. We did hear from him last night here at the Tampa Bay Times Forum. He had a primetime speaking slot. That speaks loudly to the base, and of course, you need to rally the base. You need to get the base out of their homes to vote. But as we know, you know, post-primary election, when, you know, everybody's speaking to some of those more conservative issues, now for the general election, and this is perhaps why Mitt Romney was the man for the job, is because you also have to try to win those independent voters. You have to try to win the people who maybe did vote for President Obama 4 years ago and are unhappy. So that's really what it's about, and that's what Mitt Romney had better than I think any of those other candidates, including Ron Paul, is that he just had the ability, I guess, not so much to appeal to more people, but not to offend the most amount of people.
All right, Christine, thanks so much for keeping us updated over there in Tampa. That was RT White House correspondent Christine Frizzell.